What I want to do is pause and give thanks to a lot of people. Dave Crane mentioned the fact that the Jackson Center is an inspiration for me. The reality is you're the inspiration to me. And on many fronts, I can count on everybody who's sitting here and know that at some point, somewhere, somehow, you've inspired me, the Jackson Center, to go to a different level to where we are here. This is our 14th Jackson Society dinner. Much has happened and much will happen over this time period. And this is that moment of reflection because we have not done this alone. We definitely haven't. And as I mention some of these names, I may say a vignette or two just to kind of put them into context, but they have passed away in this past year. Ken Strickler. Ken Strickler was the founding president of the Chautauqua Region Community Foundation. And the Chautauqua Region Community Foundation is our foundation. So where our endowment is and where we get lots of funds, courtesy of all those members of the Chautauqua Region Community Foundation, headed by Randy Sweeney, who has been with us, by the way, from the beginning. I mean, as we've gone lockstep, right there, Randy Sweeney has listened to me more mornings than he probably has listened to Peggy. So I thank you, Randy, specifically for that. That's great. But Ken Strickler founded it, and he passed on. Ken Fraden from Chautauqua Institution. Many of you knew Ken, and a class act, a really class act. And Ken was the kind of guy that would come to these meetings with his wife Zetta, and they would be perfect supporters. And they would be folks who would be out missionaries on the grounds of Chautauqua and making sure that I had a chance to go to the Everett Jewish Life Center and have other places to do that. James O'Brien. All of this around here, James O'Brien from the Chautauqua County Historical Society passed away, and he was our graphic artist, designer extraordinaire. He did a tremendous amount of work for free on behalf of the Chautauqua County, and we really miss him. Miles Lasser. Miles Lasser, many people you know Miles Lasser, but he, together with Gloria, were at the beginning. You would walk into this place, Gloria was our first receptionist. And boy, did she dress to the nines. My gosh, put us, everybody to shame. And Miles was one of our initial supporters from the Sheldon Foundation, gave us money right up front, gave his own personal money, and we're going to miss him. Chautauqua, Sally McClure. Bob McClure's wife passed away, and Sally came up with the idea of, Greg, since winters are long at Chautauqua, why don't you put on various classes at Turner School in the winter? So Sally and Bob came up, conned me into doing, and we studied that very first year, the Nuremberg trial and the opening statement. I'll give you my notes. Peggy, Becky, you got her. But Sally McClure was one of those folks. Jim Morgan, you probably don't know him, but Jim was the husband of Melissa Jackson, who was on our board. Jim, great guy, and Melissa's like I said, on the board, and she's a granddaughter of Robert Jackson, along with Julia, who's here. Fred Emery. Many of you probably have met him, but you didn't even know who his name. Fred was from Washington, D.C. Fred, every time we went to Washington, Arnie, I know we went down there for a couple of events where we were at the courthouse, and it was Fred who always paid for, encouraged the dinners afterwards from Washington, D.C., and he was a great, great asset to us, and we're sorely going to miss him. Hans Peter Cowell. Judge Hans Peter Cowell, he was with the International Criminal Court. He's been here, was here for a couple of times on the International Humanitarian Law Dialogues, was our host at Nuremberg when we took various trips there, and he passed away this year. Ron Hermans. We had a 10th anniversary dinner, which was a huge event, which roasted pretty well that night. Mark Russell played, as he's going to play, by the way, this next Sunday. So for those, it's a pitch. For those are available this Sunday at the Chautauqua Suites, there's a fundraiser for the Jackson Center. Mark's playing at 6 o'clock, I believe. 6 o'clock. Anyways, Ron Hermans covered the entire dinner that night. I mean, he was a Toastmaster, made a lot of fun of me, and I think he enjoyed that more than anything he probably ever did in his life. But he's just one of those guys. Bob Hagstrom. Bob was one of our initial supporters from Jamestown Community College, for those who remember. He was there very much at the beginning. John Doerr, a huge heroic civil rights lawyer. So when you have a chance to think of the staring down of George Wallace in Alabama, James Meredith being admitted into Mississippi, there was the head of the Civil Rights Division during that entire time period was John Doerr. John Doerr came here for, he was going to speak one day. He loved it so much he stayed around the second day just to do research. And we continued to stay very much in touch. And I just want to conclude with Susie Hagen. Susie Hagen, a tremendous supporter of the Jackson Center, among other institutions, and certainly for you folks at Chautauqua, you know, a huge, huge supporter of many, many things. But I got to tell you just one vignette. So Cindy and I were entertaining the Hagens, and we had a little time to kill, so I took, this is like 2001. We just bought this building, and it was a wreck. And so we came down here, and Tom and Susie gave them the tour, and they sat me down and talked to me about, hey Greg, you got something, you're going to be overwhelmed at this point, not only with the size of the project, everybody in the world is going to want to have a piece of the Jackson Center legacy. They're going to want to have programs, they want to have this, and every piece, and you're new at this, and you're going to absolutely listen and react probably to everything, and you'll go crazy. Just keep it simple. And it was Tom and Susie who just gave me 3 little pieces of advice. One, stick with the personal part of Robert Jackson. They had actually done some research. The whole idea of a guy never went to college, never graduated from law school, the answer to the Jeopardy's question, all that stuff. The guy, his domestic law, the Solicitor General, the Attorney General, the Justice of the Supreme Court, and the international humanitarian law concept, the Nuremberg and its legacy, of which Jim Johnson and Dave Crane are all a part. And I'll never forget that. So here it was in my formative years in July of 2001, and we just gotten started in April 2001. Both Susie and Tom were, I don't want to say direct, but they were more than encouraging that we focus in on that, and that has been our linchpin ever since that fact. And so to all these people, I've mentioned, and some that I have inadvertently forgotten, and I apologize for that, they've been the inspiration. They, together with you, have been the inspiration for what we've accomplished today, what we're going to hear about in the short term here, the fact we have a movie on the life of Robert H. Jackson, the fact we have books on Robert H. Jackson, which we were able to get out, the fact that we have these publications, the number of speakers, the relationships with places like Chautauqua Institution, Nuremberg, and by the way, we're going to Nuremberg next year to commemorate the 70th anniversary, so that's something that you'll tune in on. And I've exceeded my time limit tremendously, but I want to just thank you, because I'm nowhere on the program otherwise, so I've got to take advantage of this. So again, thank you so much for coming.